So I think we'll get started. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Sophie. I'm the Senior Manager of Programs and Operations at the Philadelphia Holocaust Remembrance Foundation. This afternoon is our second program in our Holocaust education series this month called Stronger Together, which focuses on camaraderie and collaboration between communities. The last part of the series will be a week from today on Thursday, February 17th at 8 p.m. when our partners at the Wassima Center in Idaho will lead a conversation with Philip Thompson, the director of Idaho's Black History Museum, to discuss the crucial collaborations of Black and Jewish Americans in the 20th and 21st centuries. Today, however, we are very excited to welcome Matthias Thoma, who's the director of the Eintracht Frankfurt Museum in Frankfurt, Germany. This is a sports museum which discusses the sports club from its origins at the end of the 19th century through to the present. But as director, Matthias has made sure that this narrative not only includes the wonderful strength of the sports fandom and teamsmanship, but also focuses on the club's activity during World War II under the Nazis. And it's through exploring these topics that Matthias has created exhibitions and educational programs that memorialize and reflect on this history while addressing contemporary antisemitism and combating it in Frankfurt and beyond. So a little bit about our speaker. Matthias came to Eintracht Frankfurt in 2005 after studying cultural education at Frankfurt University of the Applied Sciences. He became the director of the museum in 2007, and that same year published his book, and I'm not great with my German, but I'm going to try, Wir waren die Judebube, which roughly translates to We Were the Jewish Boys, referring to a Jewish soccer club. But he'll talk about that more. And Matthias has worked a great deal with the Jewish community of Frankfurt in an effort to teach others about historic and contemporary anti-Semitism and the history of this premier German soccer league club. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Matthias. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much. Yes, welcome from Frankfurt. We are going to the evening here in Frankfurt. And I'm happy that I can show you some things we do here in Frankfurt in the museum from Eintracht Frankfurt. It's a very small museum. In the stadium, the history of our club, we are working with the history of our club. We are working with the Jewish history of Eintracht Frankfurt. And I will show you a small presentation about Eintracht Frankfurt. And now I start it. You have to say if it's working. So you can see it?
Yes.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay, then we start with the memorial work Eintracht Frankfurt Museum. That's our team who won the German National Cup in 2018, Eintracht Frankfurt. And first I will show you a small film.
Dieses Ziel haben wir ausgegeben. Das haben uns einige sicherlich belächelt. Wir müssen alles abrufen, das, was uns stark gemacht hat im Laufe dieser Saison. Man muss dran glauben, denn wenn man nicht dran glaubt, wird man es auch nicht schaffen. Dann denke ich mir, kann etwas passieren.
DFB-Pokalsieger 2018, SG Eintracht Frankfurt!
So, this film, we show every group who's coming into our museum. Every Eintracht supporters knows this film. It's the victory in the German National Cup in 2018. And that was something special because Eintracht Frankfurt is not the team who wins much trophies. In the last 30 years, we played in the first division, in the second division. In Germany, it's in the football, there are some clubs who have much money, other clubs have not so much money, and nobody thought that we could win a trophy. And then we won it, and the whole city was crazy. Eintracht Frankfurt was cup winner in 2018. I have here some information about our city. We are a small city. It's a city with more than 700,000 people. It was founded in 749, and Frankfurt is a financial center in Germany. It's the seat of the European Central Bank. It's the only city in Germany with a skyline. We are very proud of this skyline, and we have a big airport, the biggest airport of Germany and one of the biggest airports in Europe. And Frankfurt has also one of the largest Jewish communities in Germany. We are saying to Frankfurt, we are in the heart of Europe, and that's also the hymn of our club, in the heart of Europe. We are in the middle of Europe. Eintracht Frankfurt was founded in 1899. This year we are celebrating 123 years Eintracht Frankfurt, and we have this time 97,000 club members. In Germany, many people are going to the club and are getting club members. And if you are looking for the list of the biggest sport clubs in the world, we are on place 16. On place 15 is Real Madrid, but I think this year we are bigger than Real Madrid. They have 2,000 club members more than Eintracht Frankfurt. And in Germany, it's very, very important to understand the supporters. The supporters are supporters of a club. They are not supporters of a company. In England, you see, if you see football clubs in England, rich people can buy a club. So individual clubs are owned by rich families. In Germany, the fans are looking that that doesn't happen. So we have a called 50-1 rule. So 51% of the shares of the corporation that provides the sport must be in the hand of the non-profit club. So if you have a company for professional football in Frankfurt, it's Eintracht Frankfurt Fußball Company, minimum 51% of the company must belong to the non-profit sport club. So Eintracht Frankfurt, the sport club, takes nearly 7% of the shares of the Eintracht Frankfurt Football Company. The fans are looking, they said, we are not supporters of a company, we are supporters of a club and of a big family with 97,000 club members. Club colors are red, black, white. German championship, we won one time, it was 1959, and the German Cup winner, we were 5 times in the 17th, in the 18th, last time 1988, and then we waited 30 years to 2018 when we won the Cup the 5th time. One time we won the UEFA Cup, it was in 1980. And the stadium, it's called Deutsche Bank Park, and it's for 51,500 people. This year we are going to make the stadium bigger. We want to get 60,000 people into the stadium because in times when there's no Corona, the stadium is sold out every match. And one more example, the stadium is called Deutsche Bank Park, but no supporter would say Deutsche Bank Park. The fans say Waldstadion. That's the old name of the stadium, Waldstadion. And they say you can't buy this name, you can't buy the name of the Waldstadion. And we are playing in the Deutsche Bank Park, but our supporters say we are going to the Waldstadion. In the museum, we working with the history of Eintracht Frankfurt, and we are working with the history of the Jewish club. So in the 20s, we were concert as a Jewish club. We never were a Jewish club, but the many supporters were Jewish, some sponsors were Jewish, and so they said Eintracht Frankfurt is a Jewish club. That's the same in another city in Germany, in Munich. There's the club Bayern Munich. They had a chairman who was Jewish, and so the people said Bayern Munich is a Jewish club. We are working with schools for the time between 1933 and 1935, when Eintracht Frankfurt supported all steps of exclusion of Jews and the politicization of sports. The club was brought into line from 1937. People had to answer if they are Aryan, and in 1930 we had an Aryan paragraph in our statutes. After the war, the club started again. We get many success. We won the German championship in 1959. We played in the Champions League final in 1960s, but nobody asked what did the club do between 1933 and 1945. This started in the 90s, in the late 90s, when supporters asked, what did you do? What was with the Jewish club members of Eintracht Frankfurt? What was with the Jewish people who worked for Eintracht Frankfurt? What was with Jewish sportlers from Eintracht Frankfurt? And in the late 90s, many other clubs started to look for their life between 1933 and 1945. In the last 3 years, we started to look for our officials between 1933 and 1945. So it was in the 90s, it was something new that we looked for Jewish club members who had to who had to go to America, to South America, to England. We looked for club members who didn't survive, who were killed in the Holocaust. But it is another thing to look for the people who worked for Eintracht Frankfurt as chairman, as officials in these times. And that we started in 2019, 2020. And in this time, we stopped the president, the honorary presidency from Rudolf Gramlich, who was the chairman from 1939 to 1942, and who was chairman from the club from 1955 to 1970, because Rudolf Gramlich was by SR. He bought a factory from a Jewish man for cheap money, and so we stopped the honor presidency from Rudi Gramlich. When we opened the museum in 2007, we started to work with the history, and we have 3 points to work with history between 1933 and 1945. First time, what we are doing is research and documentation. The second point we are doing is knowledge transfer, educational work. And the third point we are doing is creation of places of remembrance. I will show you some points we do. And we are working with this with schools, with students, with supporters. And the interest is very, very big on this time. Research and documentation. That means we are looking that for publications of books. We are looking for individual documentations of the lives of Jewish club members, and that's the title 50 Eintrachtler. We are looking for 15 lives from Jewish Eintrachtlers. Some of them survived, some of them lived in America, other were killed in the Holocaust, and we are supporting students who are researching and writing papers about the history of Eintracht Frankfurt. We are making publications on social media, and we are have many cooperations. One of the biggest is with Fritz Bauer Institute for history, and the first project I want to show you nearer is the documentation. That's are two lives of the project 50 Eintrachtlers. They both survived the war. Bertha Bodenheimer and Max Behrens, and both went to New York. Bertha Bodenheimer was a tennis player. She played at Riederwald for Eintracht Frankfurt tennis. She was Jewish, and after 1933 she had to sold her house. Her husband and she went to New York with the daughter, and the daughter has no children, so there's nobody from the family. They died in New York. The other man is Max Behrens. Max Behrens was a journalist. He was working for Eintracht Frankfurt. He was working for newspapers in Frankfurt, for newspapers. And he also went to New York. He lived in New York and worked there as a journalist too. And after the war in 1951, Eintracht Frankfurt went to New York to a goodwill tour, and Max Behrens met his old friends from Frankfurt, and he was traveling with Eintracht Frankfurt at the whole goodwill tour through America. And yes, he died in 1952. You see these papers, we print them. We have 30 lives online. You can find them on the homepage from Eintracht Frankfurt. But if you have a school class or you have a youth group who wants to read the stories of the club members, you can get some of them from us. We can send them to you, 30, 40 or 50, that you can work with young people with these lives. Everybody gets his own paper. Sometimes they are two pages, sometimes they are small books with 7 or 8 pages history of the club member. There are some books about Eintracht Frankfurt. On the right side, that's the book that I wrote in 2007. Wir waren die Judebube. In the middle, you find Vereinsfunktionäre. That's just the story about the chairman from Eintracht Frankfurt, from Rudi Kramlich to other chairmen between 1933 and 1945. And the book Football and Discrimination is about antisemitism. It's an international book, and there are many institutions from Europe who are talking about how to work with the history and with young people. Our second part is knowledge transfer, pedagogic work. We are working with Fritz Bauer Institute. We are working with the Jewish Museum in Frankfurt, with Anne Frank Education Center. Anne Frank was born in Frankfurt. We are working with the Initiative Never Again. We are working with Maccabi Frankfurt, the biggest Jewish sport club in Germany. We are working with a network of German football museums and a network from European history teachers. We are making teacher trainings courses in the museum, and we make workshops for schools, for classes, for youth groups, and we make small exhibitions. There is Kickerkämpfer Legenden zwischen Erfolg und Verfolgung, that are exhibitions who are in our museum or in the city. If you are going to the city of Frankfurt, you can see the exhibition zwischen Erfolg und Verfolgung. And then we organize readings, discussions, films, screenings, Spurensuchenprojekte, and we make tours with supporters from Eintracht Frankfurt. So we are going with friends from Eintracht Frankfurt. We went to Theresienstadt, and we went in the last year to Buchenwald. And here you see some groups. On the left side, you see the tour to Theresienstadt. That was, we called it Spurensuche 1. That was the first project. And Spurensuche 1, we worked with an old supporter from Eintracht Frankfurt called Helmut Sonny Sonneberg. And you find him in the middle of the picture. He's sitting on the chair with a sunglass. Helmut Sonneberg, this year he was 90 years old, and he was deported as child to Theresienstadt because he was Jewish. He survived the war. He came back to Frankfurt, and he was a big supporter from Eintracht Frankfurt. He is till today. He's by every match, and everybody knows him. He's a big supporter, but he didn't talk about the deportation to Theresienstadt. He just talked about football. And 3 years before, he started in the museum to talk about his child, the time he was a child in Frankfurt, and now he is very, very great for us, for our museum, because he talks in front of the school classes for supporters, and last week there was a film here in television in Germany about Sonny and his history, his Jewish history, his Eintracht history, and the people they like him because he's a man like you and me. He's an old man. He's talking crazy things, but he was in Theresienstadt, and for us he's a very, very important man. We went to Theresienstadt with him, and last year, on the right side, the picture you see, we went with 20 supporters from Eintracht Frankfurt to Buchenwald, and that was Spurensuche 2. One thing we are doing is, the last thing we are doing is creation of places of remembrance. So if you are going through Frankfurt was destroyed in the Second World War. Maybe 80% of the city were destroyed, but it was rebuilt, and you don't see something of the time between 1933 and 1945. And we are looking to create places of remembrance. And one popular thing you can do in Germany, that are Stolpersteine. The translator says stumbling stones. I hope you know them. On the next picture you see one, it's on the right side. Hier spielte Max Lehmann, hier spielte Jule Lehmann. That are the stones. They the stones were laid at the houses where the people last lived in freedom. And the text on the stone is normally "here lived," and then is the name, and then you can see what happened with the man or with the woman. Did they survive? Were they killed? We started in 2008 with the first Stolperstein we laid in Frankfurt in the city. And then every year the museum or Eintracht Frankfurt makes one Stolperstein for one club member from Eintracht Frankfurt. And we asked the artist, that's an artist project, and I think there are 30 or 40,000 stones in Europe this time. We asked the artist, can we lay a stone at the youth internat of Eintracht Frankfurt, so as where the youth people are playing football? And he said that's okay. And so if you are coming to the places where the young football players from Eintracht Frankfurt are playing, you find the stone. Here played Jule Lehmann. So the stone is not at the house he lived. He's at the Sportplatz Eintracht Frankfurt place. Here played Max Lehmann. Here played Julius Lehmann. And we asked the artist on the next day, we said, can we lay a stone at the stadium with the title Here Worked? So Paul Blütenthal, he was working for our club. He survived the war. He went to Chile, and the artist said, okay, you can do that. And now we build it. We have a stone in front of the museum, direct in the stadium from Eintracht Frankfurt. And so we had built it, 2 small monuments at sport fields. And if you make a stadium tour with a group, you have 20, 30 people who want to see the football stadium, they want to see the pitch, they want to see the stadium, the lounges. But all of them are coming to the stone from Paul Blütenthal, and we can show the story about football between 1933, about Nazis by Eintracht Frankfurt, about Jewish club members who had to go. So we have a memorial at the stadium. We brought the history with the stone. The supporters from Eintracht Frankfurt are very interested in this, in the history of the club, and they said, "That's nice that you are building monuments for club members, but there were many fans who can't go to football matches after 1933 because it was then forbidden." And so in 2012, our supporters created their own memorial at the stadium, and it's called Remain in Memory, and it's on the stadium ground, im Gedächtnis bleiben, and every year they make informations about this im Gedächtnis bleiben, and so they have their own memorial for supporters from Eintracht Frankfurt. And the last memorial we opened, you see on the left side, that's in Theresienstadt. That's a memorial for club members and for the Opfer des Nationalsozialismus from Eintracht Frankfurt. On the right side is the chairman from Eintracht Frankfurt, and we made a memorial in Theresienstadt. There are things we are doing, that are things we are doing with supporters from Eintracht Frankfurt. The interest in the work, in the history is very big. So if we make an evening with Sonny in the museum, it's sold out. There are more than 100 people in the museum, and we have a small museum. It's just 430 square meters, and we are sold out. If we are making tours through Frankfurt, we make tours we are working on the Jewish club members through Frankfurt. There are 50, 60 people. The interest is very great, and many people are interested in the club life between 1933 and 1945. And last I want to say is that in 1951 I spoke about Max Behrens. In 1951, Eintracht Frankfurt made a tour through America. It was after the Second World War. The German-American Football Association said, we have to bring the sportsmen together to get friends again, and it was called Goodwill Tour. First team was in 1915, Hamburger Sportverein, who went to America to a Goodwill Tour, and the second team was Eintracht Frankfurt in 1951. And when we played in America, first match was in New York, then we made 7 matches, 6 we won, and we came back to Germany after 4 weeks with $50,000, and this $50,000 were with the money we built our new stadium, because it was bombed and destroyed in the war. And this tour is more than 70 years beyond, and in this year in May we want to come to New York again with Eintracht Frankfurt, and we make some matches, and we want to make the American tour 70 years later. We thought to make it in 2021, but there was Corona, and I hope this year in May we are coming to New York, 71 years after the Goodwill Tour from Eintracht Frankfurt, to get friends again. We are coming back. So that was my story about that we are doing here in the museum. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Matthias. And thank you for that whole presentation. It's so interesting to see the really unique way that you're able to explore this history as a sports museum. So like I totally imagine that there are people coming to the museum or to programs that are expecting to just learn about the sport or the, you know, or the club. And it's so fabulous to see these different ways that they're discovering you know, a lot about this interconnected history of the Jewish club members and players and supporters, and both historically and now. We had one question in the chat about Jewish soccer players between 33 and 45. So I think we heard a lot about the about how Jewish supporters could not come to the stadium. But can you just can you tell us a little bit about the players and what happened to them?
Yes. So we have no player who played in the first team from Eintracht Frankfurt. We have no international player from Eintracht Frankfurt who was Jewish, but we have a young player who was a big talent, and everybody said he will be a football hero. His name was Max Gegulski, and he played in our youth team, and he had to leave the club. He lived in Frankfurt, and after 1933, many Jewish clubs in Germany got more and more club members, because the sportlers who went out of the clubs they can't play, they came to the Jewish clubs, and so they played a championship of the Jewish clubs in Germany. And Max Gegulski won this championship in 1937. He was German champion of the Jewish clubs in Germany. And in 1938, he went to Argentina. And then we have some information from the newspaper from Argentina, and then they wrote, the big player from Eintracht Frankfurt is coming to Boca Juniors. But then he didn't play for Boca Juniors, and he said in Argentina, they said, oh, the German Nazi is coming. And they said to him, the German Nazi. And Max Gegulski played for other Argentinian clubs, and he died in the, I think in the 17th or in the 18th, but he was, till he died, he was a big supporter from Eintracht Frankfurt. He told his daughter, he told his grandchildren from Eintracht Frankfurt from his youth, and he had his jersey from the Jewish Championship 1973. He took this jersey to Argentina and had it in Argentina. And, when his daughter came to Frankfurt, we laid a stone. We laid a stone for him. When his daughter came, I said, "Oh, we need this jersey for our museum. But then came the colleague from Maccabi Frankfurt, Alon Meyer, and he said, oh, we need this jersey for Maccabi Germany. And then came the National Football Museum of Dortmund, of Germany, the National Football Museum, and they said, oh, we need this jersey. And so if you are a footballer, you are proud if your jersey is at the museum from your club, but you are more proud if it's in the National Football Museum. And so the jersey from Max Gegulski went to Dortmund, to the German Football Museum. That's one of one Eintrachtler who went to Argentina. We have a football player. He was national player. He's called Julius Hirsch. Julius Hirsch played in the German national team, and Julius Hirsch, he played normally for Karlsruhe FV, and he was deported to Auschwitz and he was killed in Auschwitz. And this time the DFB makes every year Julius Hirsch Prize in remember of this national player who was killed in Auschwitz. That are two footballers, one from Eintracht Frankfurt, one from Karlsruhe.
Gotcha. Now, it sounds like, and especially with your first story, of like about this man with his jersey, and that fandom is so strong. The fans are really, they're big fans. So I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about soccer fandom now. So are there challenges with racism or anti-Semitism that you see in the fandom? And if you can tell us a little bit about the ultras and that kind of grouping of fans.
Okay, you saw they are fans. There's one more story. I have relatives of many club members who live in America, in Chile, in Argentina, in England, and one of our he worked for the club Hugo Reis. He was very active in the 20s and the 30s, and he went to Chile. His parents stayed in Frankfurt, and they were killed. They were deported and killed. And after the war, Hugo Reis said, I don't go back to Germany. I don't go back. They took my money. They killed my parents. I don't go back to Germany. But on Sunday, he telephoned how played Eintracht Frankfurt. So you don't want to go to the country, but the club is something special. The club is, it's okay. And we found many informations about club members after the Second World War. When they went to New York to the Goodwill tour, they said, "Oh, we met many club members from Eintracht Frankfurt. He and she." They don't say that they were Jewish. They always said they had a bad time in Germany. That was the word. They had a bad time in Germany, and now they are living in America. But the contact was there, yes. And about our fans, the racism and anti-Semitism, there is still anti-Semitism in the stadium, and our supporters are sometimes very, very crazy, very wild. So in Germany, if there's a big match, they make a firework, and you have to pay. You have to pay for the firework. It's expensive. And there is riot, hooligan groups. They are fighting against. But our supporters are politically very correct, and that's a privilege. Our club. They say we don't want anti-Semitism in the stadium. We don't want racism in the stadium, and our ultras are. They can do a lot, because the young people are looking for the ultras. It's like a subculture. They make graffitis, they make choreographies, and young people are oriented. They are looking what they are doing, and so that helps us. That they say we don't want racism, don't want anti-Semitism. Nevertheless, the people are there. There are people in the stadium who are anti-Semitism, but it's a privilege that they don't show their views in the stadium. Outside of the stadium, maybe they show them, but in the stadium, they know if you are coming with a Nazi shirt into our supporters block, you go out. They put you out. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So the stadium really has become and is established as a safe space, it sounds like. Can you talk a little bit about what are some of the differences you've noticed in how the Holocaust is documented and memorialized in different parts of Germany that you've seen? I hear, you talked about the stumbling blocks and the memorials that you have, right at the stadium. Can you just speak to how it's different throughout the country, or similar?
In the country at the sport clubs?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's it's a remember of the last years. It started in the late 90s in Germany that clubs looked for their life between 1933 and 1945 about their life in Nationalsozialism. It starts in the late 90s, and it was by many clubs the same. When we opened our museum, it was something special that we laid those stones. Now, you are the special club if you don't do that, because the people, the clubs know they have to position themselves, they have to do something, and so if you have a club who don't do something, it's special this time, because many clubs are doing things. But what's the same by every club is that you first look for the people who were killed. You looked for the people who were killed. You looked for the people who had to go to America, to other countries, who lost their money, their house, their family, and you brought them back to the family. That's in Germany we say we bring them back to the family. And if you make a 50 Eintrachtler, we make a life of a people of a club member, we bring him back or her back to our family. That the clubs did, but then they have to change, because you have to look who you have to change the perspective. What were the people who said you can't play in our club? What were the people who said we just want that the people, the kids are in Hitlerjugend if they are playing in our club? And there you see, not every club member of Eintracht Frankfurt was a good person. We had Nazis in our club too, and this change is not so easy, and that's in the last year's start. We made this with Fritz Bauer Institute for the Germans from Eintracht Frankfurt, and we stopped the Rudi Kramlich. He's not honor president this time, and then people say, you can't do that. He died 30 years before. He can't say something to this. But then we say, okay, he had the time from 1945 to 1988 to talk about the things he did by SR, or when he bought this the factory of a Jew for small money. In this time, he don't want to talk about this. Yes, and that's not so easy, because you have a family, you have sons, daughters, and they say, hey, that's my father, he was a good man. And you say, yes, he was a good man, but not all the time. Yes. And that's a problem. And now we made this with the Fritz Bauer Institute. Now Bayern Munich had a study about Bayern Munich between 1933 and 1945, and so you are looking very critical to your own history of the club this time.
So that's actually a great kind of segue into my last question. thinking about the challenge of, wanting to tell some harder stories when maybe there are descendants who don't want, they don't want their grandfather or their father, to be shown in that light. My last question, and also comes from the chat, is about both the role that you see the museum as having in combating anti-Semitism, but then also what are some of the common challenges that you've encountered as you've been putting on these programs and working with other organizations to combat anti-Semitism?
So what we have the privilege, and I've just talked a little about Helmut Sonneberg. Sonny, I can show you some links from films about him, and it's great. And we have that's great that he can talk about his youth, about his when he was a child. Yes. So that's a problem with the people who talk about this time. They are older and older. Yes. And Sonny told us he want to be 104 years old. So we have 14 more years, but that's a problem. You don't get more people who can talk about this. And so our thing is to write down the remembers of the survivors, but also to look for the second generation. So the next project we make, Spurensuche, we are going with the daughter of Max Lehmann, who survived in America, and then we are talking with her about the second generation. Yes, and that's the thing we are doing. Yes, I think you can do many things for Remember, and that's in Germany. Sometimes they say, oh, the young people can't hear the Nazis because it's in television, and that's not so. The people are very interested in this time. So if we make a project, if we show films, the people are very interested in this time, and many people are coming to the events we do.
Well, I'm looking to see. I think that's all for the questions in the chat and that I have. I want to echo something that one of our audience members said. Svetlana put in the chat. Thank you so much, Matthias. It's so impressive and hopeful to see how the museum's activities going beyond the boundaries to engage people in Holocaust education and preventing anti-Semitism. And I think just to echo that, it is really amazing to hear kind of the breadth of your research and the museum's programs, and it is amazing work. And thank you for spending this time with us today, and thank you for the work that you do. We're going to have to make our way out to Frankfurt sometime.
Yes, I hope so.
Yeah, and when you're in New York, hopefully that trip goes off, without any problems. But maybe we can bring you down to Philadelphia to visit us.
I have looked for it's not so far. Yes.
No, not at all.
No, I've thought it. Okay.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you everyone for being here today. And have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. And Matthias, have a great evening.
I have a great evening. I'm going now to Erwin Stein. He's 86 years old, and he made 2 goals against Real Madrid in 1960 in the Champions League final. We lost 7-3, but he made 2 goals, and I bring him 2 tickets for the match on Saturday. He's happy.
Oh, that's so cool.
Okay.
Okay. Enjoy.
Ciao.
Thank
Ciao.
you.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.